much everyone for joining. This is our office hours prototyping like a pro live stream in which we will be talking about some of the most recent updates that we've had to prototyping, as well as sharing some best practices around them. And also we have a couple of special guests who will be actually showing some more advanced methods of creating prototypes in Figma based on some of our recent updates. But before we get into that, for your host, I'm Anna. I am a designer advocate at Figma, and I am joined by Mirko. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mirko. Yeah, I'm a product designer. I've been at Figma for a couple of years, and I've always been working on prototyping.
Awesome. So yeah, for this is part of a series that we do here at Figma called Office Hours, where we just kind of dive more deeply into some of our different features. But before we go into actually diving into the demo, just some general housekeeping things. So this session will be recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel later in the future. I believe anyone who's attended, you'll get an email to notify you once that is up and available. So if you ever have to drop off at any point or you just want to revisit this, you can do so on Figma's YouTube channel. In addition, we'll have a Q&A at the end for about 15 minutes. So if any questions come up during the live stream, feel free to put it in the Q&A. We prefer that you do that instead of the chat, just because it is easier for us to keep track of all the questions and make sure that we're answering as many of them as possible. So feel free to use that. And then also, once again, make sure to set your chat to everyone so that everybody here, besides just the hosts and panelists, can see any of your reactions or things that you want to say. And last of all, this is just a quick URL to our code of conduct. But in general, we just ask that people be kind because we just want to make this a safe space where everyone can have fun. But yeah, let's go ahead and actually start diving into talking about some of the most recent updates to prototyping. And the first one that I want to talk about is videos in prototypes. So since Mirko is a product designer on the prototyping team, he's been with Figma for a really long time. I think it'd be really great if, maybe you could give us some context on what is video in prototypes.
Yeah, videos in prototype is I think, amazing new feature that can really kind of like level up prototypes that have been using, for example, something like GIFs. We've added GIFs, I think, maybe 2 years ago. I'm not 100% sure, but we knew that okay, GIFs is something we can add. But then we also kind of heard over the time, we heard complaints. Okay, GIFs of course don't support audio. They're huge in file size, not as good in quality. It's kind of a little bit of a not clear why GIFs are so popular, I would say even. And so we knew we had to do videos at some point. We wanted to support videos because they support a much better quality, because they kind of also support audio, and because we wanted to kind of just get into high fidelity prototyping, and videos was an important step for that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, I 100% agree with that. And I guess because it is so important with creating these high fidelity prototypes, were there any specific use case that you were really excited to see people in the community using videos and prototypes for, or just excited or hoping that people would use it for anything?
I think there's a wide range of where videos can be used, right? You have on one hand, you have I don't know, a film cutting, Final Cut Studio Pro prototype of cutting videos together. That's out of scope, right? We're starting from the other end, where videos are used in the background as light background videos for kind of setting the scene, but also as little interactive elements where videos play on hover, or they play when you click on them, or simple elements where videos in a feed. You can do more advanced things rebuild, for example, the YouTube player roughly. But when you get into the player and you have the scrubbing interaction to kind of change a different position, that's not yet totally doable. That's definitely something we want to add at some point. But we've started with this with the core functionality of just making it playable a little bit. So I think that just adding that little bit of additional interaction with it, that's also not possible with GIFs, was an important first step. The other step, of course, was really just like, adding sound. I think there's a way you can hack basically videos to use sound. Basically, as like if the video is hidden somewhere, you can like play some sound if you click a button. That's kind of fun. It's not the primary use case for this, but it's definitely something we expect people to use it for as well.
100%. I know definitely here at Figma, there's a lot of Figmates that have been having a lot of fun using videos and prototype things just for like internal presentations, or we like to create like these interactive anniversary cards for people. So that's been like a really great way. Yeah, just like adding in that kind of like custom like congrats message. And also, I guess now this officially confirms that you call it GIFs instead of GIFs. So take with that what you will. Curious to know what people's take on that is. Awesome. And then I guess this one last thing I'd love to know is, as you were saying, like there's so many things that we can continue to do with videos and prototypes. Was there any one particular part of developing this feature that was the most difficult for the prototyping team?
Yeah, I think like one of the things we underestimated, it's just like the sheer complexity of uploading, hosting, streaming videos. It's very, very, very different from how we handle images today, right? We upload images, we then show the images to you on any other frame everywhere else. But with videos, it's slightly tricky. We upload the videos, and what happens then is we convert that into something called HLS, which is a format that has like a bunch of different resolutions of this video. And then when a user streams that video, the HLS format handles that it automatically picks which video format or which video resolution is best for your connection. And that allows us to kind of like upload videos even with a higher quality without then kind of like paying the price when you connect to the prototype down the line. And so you can upload a higher quality video and you get the same effect that you have like in a top of the line streaming service, right? Where you connect with a video and it kind of like changes the quality at some point. That is because we kind of like convert this into HLS to minimize the bandwidth impact everywhere around the world. And that was just like, really tricky to figure out, and understanding kind of like who do we allow to upload videos at what point in time was tricky. But I'm excited that we've done it, and it's only upwards from here.
100% agree. And yeah, there is so much more complexity I find that goes into the development of some features that are deceivingly simple in some ways, just with how we interact with them. And also, I know that there's been just a lot of work that your team has been doing with just improving like the speed and quality of prototypes. So kudos to you guys. But yeah, now that we've like talked about it and given some context, I'd love to just share just a super basic use case and diving into how exactly do videos and prototypes work. So with this super simple example, so we have like this little app design, and maybe I want to add a video into this little plant description page here. So I've already added this video in. You can add them in the same way that you add images, whether it is just through inserting like browsing from your computer or just dragging and dropping it into your file. For videos, it does need to be in MP4 format. And then we also max out at 30 megabytes. So that is the maximum size for videos that you can upload. And in terms of like configurations you can do, when I've selected on the video in the prototyping tab, you can see I have the option to have the video autoplay. So meaning when I go into prototyping presentation mode, whether or not that video is automatically playing. And then I have the options to also have the video loop when it reaches the end. And then also if there's any audio, I can choose whether or not I want the sound to be default on or off. In terms of interactivity that you can do with videos in prototypes, if I just quickly add a flow starting point and an interaction, you can see here that with videos, you have the option to play, pause, or play or pause. So if I want clicking, for instance, on the frame to play the video, to pause it, or if depending on the state of the video, I just want it to essentially do the opposite of whatever it currently is. So yeah, that's some of the interactivity that you can have. For this specific use case, because I do want like a UI indicator to show a play and pause state, I'm actually going to create two separate states for that. and combine them into an interactive component. So I have my video already here. I'm going to just nest that in another frame, and let's call this video pause. And let's just add like a quick overlay on top of it, because I will be adding a play button. So I want to be able to see that. And yeah, let's bring this play button I already have in here into this frame. Cool. Let's bring this out. I'll call this just overlay. And let's just duplicate this out. And let's make this the playing state. And hide these layers. And also, I need to quickly make sure that I have my video configuration set up. So when it is playing, I do want it to be set for autoplay. And then in the pause state, I want it set to pause. So let's do that. And now I'm just going to combine them as a component set so I can bring it into my app without having to have duplicate screens. So create component set, and then let's draw in those interactions real quick. So I just want it to transition into each one. And you'll also notice here, there's this option to reset video position. So when you're using videos in Prototype, it's similar to how you're trying to create, for instance, smart animate transitions, where Figma will recognize using the frame and layer names, whether something is persistent from the start and end point of a prototype transition. The same thing will work for videos. So because my two frames that have my video fill are named the same, Figma knows that it is the same video that's playing. So as I'm switching between that play and pause state, Figma recognizes that it can resume the video from where it's paused. If I were to click this checkbox, every time I make the transition from pause to play, it would start all the way back from the beginning. So it really depends on the use case as to what makes sense for this. But in this case, I would just like it to continue resuming from that point in which it was paused. So I've done that, and let's just drag in an instance of this into my design here, and let's hit play to actually see the prototype. And oops, looks like I have it nested in the wrong thing. All right, let's option drag it out, and let's put it in my auto layout frame here. Cool. Alrighty, so I'm in this pause state. I can play to play the video, and I can pause it again. So yeah, it's a super basic example. Videos work exactly the same way as any other fill, so you can apply it to any frame or shape, and you can also do some crazy like blur effects and layering other different colors on top of it. But we'll see some more advanced applications of this from our guest speakers today. So yeah, let's continue to move on. Since we were talking about the state preservation with videos, that actually leads into our conversation as well around sections in Figma and how that influences prototypes. So let's go on to talking about sections. Nico, if you don't mind, it'd be great if you could give us just some context on what exactly are sections, and then also what's so great about sections for prototyping.
I was just responding to a message. Yes, there we go, to Q&A message. Thank you. Sections, I think the cool thing about sections is that it's the first time we took a primitive that existed in FigJam first and turned it into a primitive in like a top level class primitive inside of Figma. And so sections have two kind of like core roles, really. One is this just the canvas just can get wild and messy, right? That's kind of like the purpose of the canvas, you know? And we wanted something that helps users organize the canvas in a better way. Of course, you could ask now, why didn't we just use frames or groups? Like people can use that. But the key part is that for sections or for kind of like prototyping, realized we needed a separation between something that we consider a screen in the prototype and something that we consider a container of a screen or a set of screens. And we need like a clear differentiation. If you have a really large frame and you link to that frame, then we open that frame to you essentially, right? We open that frame in the prototype viewer. But with sections, it allows us to treat a connection to a section slightly differently. So not only can you organize your contents on the canvas, it also allows you to structure your prototypes better and be smarter or kind of like enable smart state management behavior so that the prototype feels more realistic. In a prototype, it's normal, like in a real app, it's normal that if I switch, for example, between tabs, each tab remembers what it was last showing. And we wanted to recreate that behavior in a super, super intuitive way. And that's kind of like what we try to do with sections.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, when we had it in FigJam and bring over to Figma, I was really surprised to learn that it actually had this really cool influence on prototyping. But I know you have an example that you want to show us. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing so you can share your screen with us.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. And there's, here, let me just click this. I'm going to answer this live. There was one question. Can you please explain the difference between making a section and making a frame over that? Yes. So the key part here is that, as you can see, these are top-level frames, right? There's screens that are connected, and I can create this connection from here to here. And it says on-click navigate to detail. So I can navigate to that frame. And once I'm like on that frame, it now shows in the prototype view. That's the core prototype flow that we've just seen, right? If we open this prototype in a new tab, we'll see that the prototype, when I go to the Monstera detail page and I play this video, I go back, let's open this again, and I go to the orders tab, right? And I want to see, did I buy that Monstera plant before, right? And then if I go back to home, I'm back at the default homepage, right? And I'm like, wait, but I just had the Monstera open. Like, why can't I go back to the Monstera that was just left open? And so we've known that like those kinds of like really basic, realistic features are incredibly important to make users, feel like, make participants in user research sessions feel that this is a real thing. And with stuff that this happens, that kind of like breaks the fourth wall. If it breaks the fourth wall, the results in like the user testing are going to be much worse. And so the thing that we allow you to do is basically create sections. So you can use the shortcut Shift S, or you can use the drop down here and like select section. So you can now create sections, and then we're going to create two sections here. One is the section which we call home tab, right? So we're going to say here, this is home. Then we're going to create another section and call this section orders. Oh, call this section orders. And as you can see, the sections are like really big right now. And if I double click on a section, it automatically resizes that section to be like of a nicer size. Let's do that here as well. And now we have this like cleanly set up section. The thing that we now want to do is then we now want to change this one and this one to linking to the section. And as you can see, there's one thing that is new here. We've added a couple of editing speed improvements that you can now drag to select noodles, essentially. And yes, we call them internally noodles. We can call them prototype connectors or whatever, but for us, those are noodles. And so you can just drag to select these noodles, and we'll add more about this in the future. And so what we'll now do is we'll just connect this, instead of connecting this to the first frame, which still works, we connect this to the section. We'll do this the same thing with this other one here. And now this is connected to the section, and we'll do this one here as well. And this one here as well. And so what now happened is now I've created these two connections here, and they go from the orders icon to the orders section. So what that means is that under the hood, it basically says reopen the last frame that you have viewed in that section. And so if we go, let's say we go to orders, right? And we go to completed. Now I know, okay, we're in the completed tab in the orders main tab. We go back to home, we go to the Monstera plant. And if we now click on orders, we're in the completed tab. And now the user, in like participant in user research sessions, can immediately kind of like very intuitively click back and forth and be like, hey, in the home tab, oh, there was the Monstera, and the orders tab, yeah, it's not completed. Okay, I want to do this now. I want to add this to the cart or some other thing. If I go back to this and I go to the orders tab and I go back to home, we're back at home. And so the cool thing here is that like just by linking it to a section and by grouping those frames in the section, you actually create a really complicated prototype. You could imagine doing this with variables or kind of like conditionals, and then say, oh, which in this context was I last at, and then open this last frame. But the thing that we try to do is really allow you to iterate on interactive ideas incredibly quickly, which means we need to find abstractions that make it easy for you to organize your prototypes in a smart way. And so that's the goal of sections. And yeah, we hope it'll be a lot of fun for you all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, as you said, it is super important, especially if you're using prototype for user testing, trying to not pull the user out of the experience and having kind of like these unexpected transitions happening. So yeah, it is like super incredible that sections allows you to be able to essentially remember where people need to navigate back to, and also just reducing the size of prototypes that people need to create to make that realistic experience for their prototype. And then one last thing I want to point out was, as Nico was doing his prototyping, we also recently had an editing improvement where now you could have the origin of a prototyping noodle be from any side of a frame. It used to be from only the right-hand side, but now Figma will automatically detect, depending on the direction in which you're drawing that prototyping noodle towards, it'll automatically adjust the origin to either the top, bottom, left, or right. So yeah. All right.
One more thing. I see a couple of questions around how do we decide which frame to first pick, and this is just the top left frame in the section. So we pick the top left section in here, the top left frame in a section, and also you can do this with nested sections. So you could create an entire section around this and call this like the prototype flow, and link to this section, and we would then pick automatically for you wherever you have last left off. So yeah, go ham on this. It'll be fun to see what you create.
Awesome. Cool. Back to our slide. So yeah, thank you so much, Nico, for just talking to us a bit about videos and prototypes and giving us that amazing demo of sections. Now I'm super excited to introduce some special guests that we have who I personally consider to be prototyping pros from our community. But we're joined today by Mirko and Jannis. So Mirko will be the first person who will be demonstrating some really cool prototyping examples that he uses in his day-to-day workflow. Mirko is a partner and creative director at Paper Tiger, and he's also a very active Figma community advocate. So yeah, go ahead, introduce yourself, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Hello, everyone, and thank you. Thank you again, Anna and Nico, for having me. I feel like I'm surrounded by the same plans of the prototype, so feeling pretty on brand. I'm going to share my screen and kickstart everything. So let's do this. All right. So, well, thank you everybody for joining in the first place. And this is going to be all about the protopazzi, Italian way of saying crazy prototypes. And again, hello, this is like Mirko from Paper Tiger. I'm partner and creative director. I've been working in design to the core for the last probably 15 years, specifically on web and interaction. And as Anna said, I'm also very active in terms of like the community itself. I run different communities in Italy for the Friends of Figma, as well as a jury panel on ABU awards. The type of work that I do usually involves a lot of like crazy thing, whether it's like interaction, web, illustrations, and so many different aspects. And when Figma started implementing the features around the videos, well, that was a game changer for us because we were able to describe our ideas in a more meaningful way, whether it's clients or the end users. So join me in these three sort of like scenarios, kind of crazy sometimes, where I will show you one of my favorite sort of like ways of using videos in the prototype. And we are going to start from the basic. Like, first of all, of course, you need a video. And Figma makes the entire process so seamless because all you need to do is to drag and drop a video from your computer to your canvas. as Nikolas was saying, the support is around MP4. And one of the first things that I'm kind of like take into account when I start doing that is also making sure that my video are not so big. So I usually tend to optimize them, even if there is a high level of optimization happening in the background. And for whoever is interested, for example, I use cap screen recorder, which is super, super nice and make my videos super, super light. That's important because you don't want to have any sort of loading problem where you are presenting videos. So what are we going to cover? I would love to discuss with you basically 3 different cases where we start with the idea of like how having control on the play, pause on demand can enable us to tell better stories. Having a way of like showcasing smooth transition between frames when we are animating something on the screen. And finally, a little bit more advanced use case where we're going to mix a lot of components. We're going to mix a lot of like different concepts to see how powerful this actual feature means when, you know, we're dealing with new prototyping workflow. So starting from a very basic example, we have a card in here where, you know, this is an interactive Figma prototype, by the way, not a video at all. And as I hover the mouse, you will see that the video starts playing. So ideally, using the autoplay, I can control the movement of the video on demand and create those nice little moments that happen on the screen. So this is kind of like very easy to build actually, because all we need, we saw this previously with Anna, is just a component connected with the prototype. In this case, I'm using a while hovering interaction. And all I'm doing right now is to trigger the autoplay when the hover happened. So you can see here, thanks to the video feature, I have control on how the autoplay will happen. And all I need to do is to trigger off and on the check whenever needed. The interaction detail on this particular example are very basic. Probably like you don't need all of this because it's all controlled by Figma itself. And I thought that was kind of amazing because again, video can tell a lot with the movement. On a more advanced example here, you will see that now we can combine videos and animation all together to create smooth moments. Right now, I'm going to replay this so you can see better if there is a little lag. But you can see that everything feels so smooth and I can control video and animation at the same time. And again, the premises are everything in Figma, thanks to this approach, gets super easy. And as you can see here on the actual architecture of this sample, I have 3 main scenes, which are all connected to the prototype, and all of them kind of feature different settings. So ideally, if you want to build those kind of animation in Figma, whether you're starting from any base example or something more advanced, you have to make sure about mostly one thing, that all your layers are getting organized with names that matches the different frames. So as you can see here on my frame, I have the A, B, C. Even if the structure is different, the layer name has to be the same for one smart animate to make the proper animation. So that's what I did there, making sure that all my layers were organized properly. And then in order to trigger the animation automatically, you can kind of leverage this trick where, you know, you can set up an animation using after delay, getting a little 1 millisecond of delay between each frame. And so everything will play smoothly and, you know, automatically as if you were playing a video. The rest of the animation are pretty straightforward in a way where, you know, this is basically just animate doing his own magics. So if you take this example and push it in a way where you keep repeating the same actions, you can literally build a lot of different advanced things. And one of the things that I like, and I'm going to show you, it's a Klein project I built recently, was this loading animation that combined videos and multiple state and interaction and transition to describe something very powerful to a potential client that wants maybe a new branded website experience. And as you can see here, this is not a video. This is literally a Figma component animated on the screen, empowered by the video technology and the smart animate features. So when I approach complex use cases like this, what I usually do is to leverage interacting component to create storyboards. And a storyboard for me is a collection of different phases that the interface or like the animation that I'm kind of making have. So imagine this as a little like frame by frame description of what's going on the screen. And what you see here, this is basically the component. So every layer is named properly and organized in a sequence. So why this is important, or what are two things that are kind of like key for making those animation in this specific case? First of all, like trigger the super secret mode in Figma that is basically Command Y, and that means the outline view. The outline view will allow us to see the hidden layers of your design and check how things are moving or going in a specific case. So as you can see here, this sort of like view shows all the secrets of the animation that I'm doing, or how I'm moving the text, and how the different components interact. I feel like outline mode is super helpful in this case, because it makes you realize what's going on, and also start animating maybe masks or text or videos and all those different elements. And the other secret, again, is just pushing forward what we have already as tool, is the actual interaction details. There is a lot going on in that panel in a way that it's so powerful. For example, here, I'm just using the same sort of like trigger and animation to maybe have a custom delay, a little bit of like timing that, can be applied to an easing. So all those options are getting available for you into this panel as well. And they're going to make tons of difference when you're going to present your design. Think of it as adding personality to any of your animations. So that's very important, and we can do this straight from Figma. So this was kind of like a quick overall, but in terms of like what I'm trying to say and share with you is that thanks to the video, thanks to this new advanced ways that we have, we can create stories using prototypes, whether we leverage autoplay or the on-demand play and pause. We can also create seamless design and transition across all the different frames. And that's why we want to rely on smart animate sequencing, and also the status persistence that we have, being the video continually played as we go through the prototypes. And finally, all of this, it's super useful on a creative perspective for us, because it does kind of have and add an extra layer of fidelity on our work. And it's all about then describing those in interaction through maybe storyboarding or leveraging outline mode, and of course taking a little extra care on the custom interaction. So that was it. That was basically it. And thank you for the attention. If you want to check a little bit about my work in terms of like the interaction, I tend to like and to share this, feel free to join us on Twitter. But yeah, this is basically it. I'm excited to see what you're going to do with all of those. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mirko, for just sharing a little behind the scenes of your work. I'm personally blown away just by like your use of videos along with your type treatment. Like your slides are totally impeccable, and I wish I had that level of design skill. But yeah, I guess we will transition to our next guest, Jannis. So Jannis, aka known as Figma Tellier, is a French product designer at Facet.ai, which is a edit creative AI application. He worked in France, London, and currently works remotely in San Francisco. So yeah, Jannis, I will hand it off to you.
Perfect. Yes, I will share my screen. Up. Is it working? I guess yes. Let me just move that up. So yeah, I will show you like some experiment that I do usually like with Figma. So usually under my name, like Figma Tellier, as you can see, like perhaps some of you are like I'm doing like some illustration, animation, and try to push like further like what Figma is capable of. So today I have done like a special like experiment just for this event. I will show you the render, and then I will go backwards and to explain how I did it. So I will show you now. It will just take like a moment. So now I didn't put the sound yet, but what I did is that I did like an illustration like there and animate it. So there is like several like component there. So the background is something that I did like with DALL-E, and then I animate that into After Effects. I use also Photoshop to cut out like the different buildings. I did like the animation of the lady here and the dog here with like Figma, and illustrate that directly inside Figma. And yeah, I animated something like that when she's moving like her hand like that. And also we have like when a little robot here that comes from everywhere, anywhere, from the bot. And yeah, it's just like moving a little bit. So it's a bit laggy because I have like a lot of different software in the background. But yeah, that's what I did. And yeah, if I close it, this one, now, yeah. And with the sound, it looks like that. I will activate it. I don't know if it will. So yeah, it looks like that. So I will close it and go backwards to explain you how I did it. So what I've done is that I have like different layer on my prototype there. So I have like a noise GIF animation here first. Then underneath I have like something that I called like light. So it's like a blue light, like a solid like a layer that I put like in lighten, like in blending mode. And after that, I have like 2 bokeh videos there that actually like I put like in also like in screen mode, like in 50%. And after that, I have the foreground here. So I will jump into it here. So that's my foreground. So my foreground are made like of cables animation here that is blurry. After that, I have my characters here. So the dogs, the lady on the bag. And on the background, I have like a blending mode on my rooftop illustration here that actually like gives the light effect of the sky here. So that's my rooftop train here. That's my cables here that I have. And I did like the animation here. Sorry, at the end actually. Here. But I will show you first, like for the background, how I did it. So what I did is like I used DALL-E. So I will jump into DALL-E. So what I've done is that I generate, so DALL-E, for people who doesn't know, is like a website where we can generate like image with AI. So I put like some stuff here to generate like some image and some outpainting. After that, I outpainting it. So as you can see, there is like some glitch or it doesn't link here. But what I wanted to have is like a full city with some buildings here. After that, I generate like this image here with like a outpainting, and I export it. And after that, I moved to Photoshop. And then into Photoshop, what I did is that I just cut out like different buildings and duplicate them, create like a different like I would say like a layer, so more like in the foreground, more like in the background. And I separate that from the background there from the sun here. So as you can see like that. So I export that as a PNG. And after that, what I did is that I took like these 2 layers and I moved to After Effects. So when I moved to After Effects, I decided that to have like just like one like background with the buildings was not enough. So to create like some depth, the thing that I did is that I just duplicate them and just rotate them in to just like have like some depth like that. So as you can see, and I just move like the background there from the sky like a bit slower. And I had like an effect here on the sunset directly. No, sorry, it's like on this one here. Sorry, it's in French because I'm French. But what I did is like I put like a light ray effect from After Effects. And then when I combine that all together, it gives like a movement like that. Okay. Then I took it, exported it as an MP4, and I moved to Figma. And what I did is that I put the video here on the background here. So that's my background. What I did also is that I duplicate like the video from After Effects, like the sunset one with the sky. And I use that to do like on my rooftop here of my train. I called that like Sun Halo 1. and I put that into multiply. So what happened is that, as you can see, it's gray. And when I add it, now we have like the video that is in blending mode with the rooftop. So actually, like what happened is that the light will move through it. So I didn't have to make more details like into my rooftop, because actually with the light, it gives like a quite nice effect there. Then after that, for the cables, so to return on that, I duplicate them twice. One here on the foreground, as you can see here. On the foreground is like a little bit blurry because it's really what we have on the front. So to give like a bit some aspect of focus. And then another one here on the foreground that is like less blurry. After that, like for the character here, for the lady here, what I did that I separate the head from the body itself, because like the animation is not the same. Here's like it's not the same timing. So if I move there into prototype, I have like a delay here of 1 milliseconds. I use like a preset like slow 600 milliseconds. So I move like between these two frames first. Then after that, if I click on it, on this one or on this one, so as you can see on click, it moved to the frame 3 here. And then after that, we have like this animation of the body, and then it goes back to the bottom. I did another one, but I didn't use it at the end of this one. So that's how I animate that. For the head, it's not the same timing. So as I can show you, it's like quick and 5 milliseconds between like each frame, because I wanted like a movement of the wind kind of for the air. For the layer itself, like when you go inside, there is like many different layers. So I have like 15 like different type of hair, and inside I have also like some reflections, some mask, and these kind of things. That's for my head. And for the lady, so that's actually like the main component, and I duplicate them to make like the animation to it. So actually like all these different things here, actually like that's this one is the main component. And to create like illustration, I just like put like in it like a different like gradient from like for the back of the lady. So as you can see, there is different like gradient here. So many of them, and I separate like each part of the body. So I have like the end here that I can move like that if I want to. It seems to be broken here, and this one also is separated from this one, and also the last one here, like that. So one important thing when you are doing like animation inside Figma for this kind of animation here for illustration, you have to create a little bit like in After Effects some anchor point. So what I did is that I used like something I called guide, but I could have called it like anchor points. But I will try to just like move it a little bit further. So yeah, and actually like the size of the frame is the size actually of the anchor point here. Sorry, here. So if I rotate that, it will just like even like I shouldn't put like into clip content any like never like it should be like extended to the frame, but that's how I did it. For the I will go back up like that, the guide. So I did like all the illustration like that. I did the same thing for the legs and also like the back of the lady, so it's separated from the rest of it. Also like for the pockets and kind of things. Just the bag, so I didn't animate that. I just like illustrated it like that and just put like a little bit of a shadow here. As you can see also for the ladies, there is like a shadow here and here for the dog also. And for that, actually, I duplicate that into Figma and just like move that around and make like a bit of blur here with like a gradient, like with a mask. So that's how it works. For the dog, same thing. I separate like the head from the rest of the body and also the ears. So that actually are not animated. It's just like when I move into my main animation of the dog here, I just changed the head of the dog here. So let me find it. So the head here. So actually I have different step of the dog. So for example, like that. So I can just like move it if I want to. So actually, like this one are when we don't click on it. So it's just like moving like back to the second frame and then to the first frame. And when we click on it, we go to this animation here. So we just move between these two here. So what I did is that I just used like a delay, so 1 millisecond, and Smart Animate like a easy in and out for this one. What else? For the robot, I use the same principle, same thing. I separate like every component, so the head from the body. So I didn't have to do like the other, I would say like a arm here, also leg. So what I did is that after that, I just animate that here with like when we click on it, we move to this frame. And then we go to this third one, then the fourth one, and then we go back to this one, and this one. And if we click on it, we go back to the first one, so the robot disappear. So yeah, that's it, I think. And yeah, that's how it looks like when we separate like all the different layers. So first the noise, then the light with the blending option with like the different video here, so 2 bokeh effects here on screen mode. Then we have like the foreground and the background with like the rooftop, then the characters, then the robot, and then the background that I did with like After Effects and DALL-E, and then with that to Figma. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, and I hope you will like it. Actually, like this file is available into my account on Figma. So if you type like Figma Atelier, you can actually duplicate it and have fun with it. So yeah, it will be perhaps a bit laggy because I put like a lot of too much perhaps layer, just to let you know. So I need to optimize it like for later on. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jannis. I too agree with other people that you definitely need to create a course where you can share just how you build these amazing prototypes that you're creating. And yeah, for people who are asking, Jannis will be uploading his file containing the prototype that he just showed today, so you guys can view it on your own computers, especially if the connectivity with Zoom wasn't amazing. And yeah, dive into it yourself later. But for the remainder of the about 10 minutes that we have, we're open to any questions. If people want to enter them into the Q&A, it can either be directed towards Mirko or Jannis. And due to scheduling conflicts, Nico wasn't able to stay until the end, but we do have an engineer, Luca, from the prototyping team, who would be able to answer any questions that you guys also have around just like the development of Figma's prototyping features. So yeah, feel free to add any questions into the Q&A. Otherwise, I have some questions of my own. Yeah, just reiterating as well, if no one was able to see in the beginning or in the chat, all recordings will be available on our YouTube later. So we will definitely be emailing you guys once that is up and available to see. And then, yeah, I think we can also attach the files if Mirko and Jannis want to share the link to those community files as well. We can see if we can include that in the same email. But yeah, as for questions, unless if anyone has ones of their own, just from seeing people's comments and just some like my own personal ones, I would love to ask, first of all, Mirko, I would love to learn a bit more around like what exactly is your thought and ideation process like as you're building things in. I feel like the aesthetic of your videos along with the typography just mesh super well, and would love to learn a bit more about just kind of like what is your creative process like?
This is actually a very good question. I love it. So yeah, I feel like we've been experimenting with creativity in general at Paper Tiger, and we landed on an approach that was mostly based around the idea of a lot of research early on and a lot of understanding about what the businesses want out of the type of exercise or product that we are going to build. So from a design perspective, I feel like understanding the direction and putting everybody onto the same line, like we do a lot of mood boarding, we do a lot of like screenshotting and different tracks, and then we create the stories out of that. So ideally is basically a part that starts with acquiring data and turning data into actionable design elements. So it's a little bit of that. And usually in Figma, it's just, me most of the time creating giant collection of images and presenting them, trying to understand how things can, fit and connect with each other. And then, of course, experimenting with Smart Animate. The thing that I love with Smart Animate is that it's fast. It's crazy fast for this kind of exploration. So that's also why we tend to kind of like, follow that sort of thoughts. And of course, ended up with something that may be implemented in future stages of the product or the website.
Amazing. Yeah. And then is there any advice that you have when it comes to trying to like present your different ideas and honing in on like a specific one that you want to move forward with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a good one. I will say, first of all, it's about like giving people the possibility to express an opinion around something, because most of the time we're kind of like not designing for ourselves, but for other people, and getting them owning like the process itself. It's very important. So when we do present several options, we do present several reasoning around them, and we're trying to listen to what would be the best case scenario for the type of problem that we're trying to solve. So try to be impactful usually help. Like sometimes even like a video is worth more than 1,000 words. So using motions and a lot of like different tricks, we can literally convey a lot of different ideas, and also considering that most of the time those ideas are not meant to be delivered by or to other designers, but to people that may have different backgrounds. So it's very important to be extra clear about what we're trying to communicate, and even it's like through prototypes or notes or again videos.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing some insight into your process. Also, just based on some comments that I saw, I would love to ask this question to Jannis. Just around like, I mean, as you were showing kind of like how you constructed this super complex prototype that you've built, how do you break it down? I mean, there's so many different layers to it and communicating like depth. You have so many different details going into the sun rays and the shadowing. Like, how do you, like come up with starting with an idea into developing into something so complex with so many elements?
Thank you. Yeah, by testing. Usually it's like I try like I've made like almost like a year now. I started like with Jinx experiments, then like with other like experiment that I did, and from there like I learned like how I should split like my different components to have like an animation that works like together. And for the idea, usually it's like I start from scratch, and perhaps I'm just inspired by like some stuff that I've seen like on Twitter or like from Dribble or like even from Figma, from people that from like VJ, like it's a great inspiration for me also. And I learned from them, and after that like I just try to build it like from scratch and try to find the best thing to optimize like my file, and that it looks great at the end. To be honest, like it's just like testing. It's like that's why I call it experiment, because it's experiment. I just like try to push like Figma to see like what could be done in Figma and not linked to product design at all, because like I do it like all day, so I try to do something totally different on my personal like on something more personal to me. So I'm not an illustrator at all or animator. I just like learn it by myself.
I mean, I would call you an illustrator and animator just based on like all the amazing things that you've created. But is there also anything that you've learned in the process of how to build like such complex prototypes without having them being like, too heavy or slow to be able to view them and prototyping those?
So for the last one that I did is like truly like not totally optimized. I need to I think improve it. So perhaps I will try to find a way to export like my MP4 like into like the same resolution, but it's like less heavy. And I learned like to be honest, like just by doing, and And usually it's like the first thing that you need to do when you do this type of prototype that are quite complex. So this one actually is not the most complex that I did. It's quite complex, but on my professional like at Facet.ai, I do like more complex like prototyping, like with the entire application into one file and prototype it. So it's really like more complex because you have to link like everything together. But yeah, I think just by testing, like don't be afraid to test things. And I think Figma is not just for product design; it could be used like for many different things. And if you want to have some fun with it, just do it. It's just like for me, it's like it's just a hobby, like to do that like on Figma because I like it. And of course, like I use like also different plugins that also help me through different tasks. Like for some texture that I use for this one or other that I did before. Roji has done like a plugin called like a noise and texture that I use like quite often to do like some texture on some component that I create. So I would just advise you like to take a look at all the different like community, what they are doing, and yeah, learn from them. That's how I did it. I learned from the best one, and now I people are learning a little bit from me. So that's good. I'm happy about that, and I hope that I will yeah, learn again from other people, and for sure I learn. It's always like the thing that you always learn.
Yeah, I totally agree. Whenever I'm trying to figure out how to do something, my first thing is I'll see if anyone has already built like an existing like prototype, transition, interaction that I'm trying to recreate so I can learn from those styles. But I'd also be super interested in just seeing if maybe sometime you can share just some of the top plugins that you use as well. I think people will be really curious to see like what different plugins they can use to kind of up level their prototypes. Or especially if they want to create animations in Figma, if you have any recommendations for that. But we are running out of time. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Jannis and Mirko, for joining us today. And yeah, once again, we will have our recording of this posted to YouTube. You will get notified of it. But if you're interested in seeing any future live streams, such as this one, please go to figma.com/events. And then if you guys have any suggestions for any future live streams or community events that you would like to see, please contact us at community@Figma. But otherwise, thank you everyone so much. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day or evening, and we'll see you later.